Go ahead and start recording. So today's or this week's topic for our roundtable discussion is training. I have some pre-planned questions to just help get the conversation going, help get your thought process going, and then we definitely would like to encourage participation, asking any questions, any comments. My name is Alex. I work with appliance repair companies for paid advertising and online marketing. I'm your host and your moderator. And then we have Bobbie Howard that is going to be sitting in the hot seat and sharing some of his experience and some insights. Bobbie, you want to go ahead and just give a little bit of some background and who you are and what you do, and then we can jump into things.
Sure. Almost 40. I've been doing appliance repair and electronic repair for close to 25 years now. I started off my mom and dad's TV repair shop. I got a degree in electronics, and I've been moving in this direction ever since, working my way through the ceilings. I was a BE for Samsung. 2018, I hit #1 LTP technician in the country. I became a lead technician and a trainer. I would go into different areas and open up the storefronts for that location, the truck, the inventory, the manifest, the escalated calls, etc. Now I am a partner with 2 other partners, and we own Capitan Appliance, and I do strictly COD work, and I am so happy, so much loving it. Way better way of life.
Great, thank you. I'm just curious, what about this partnership that you're in now and what you're doing? What about this makes it so much better than before?
The fact that I get to minimize my routes. I'm not on a corporate demand. I'm not going to a call that the customers are already inconvenienced because the dispatch had to go through Samsung. Samsung ran them through their 1 through 5 process, and it got sent over to us. Or previous, people have been there before. We get to take the call live, instantaneous with the customer, and schedule it as soon as possible, and make the whole start to finish a little easier. The big thing I like is going to be, of course, the money. When you deal with warranty work, most of it's going to be pre-contracted bids where you're going out to the home and you're doing as the manufacturer recommends, which, that's in some cases, it's going to be multiple trips, and you're on a contracted bid for $112 or $125, depending the brand and the model. Or if it's a sealed system, $180, where COD work, you can kick that up and, adjust your own rates to, make it to what it's accountable for. You don't have to do calls that are way outside of your grid. You have more freedom.
Yeah, and it sounds like you have a lot more control, not only over what you have on your plate or what you're putting on your plate, but also it sounds like you'll be able to control the experience that the customer has, which feeds right into that happy customer experience and things like reviews, which we will get to, I imagine. I know that you're a big proponent of reviews and how important they are. Why don't we go ahead and jump into some of these kind of pre-planned questions. So the first set of questions has the newer technician or solo business operator in mind. So it's pretty common advice that I've seen throughout the group of, find a mentor, find a group like this Facebook group to get some support. But if beyond those things, if somebody doesn't have a mentor and they're already tapped into one of these groups to get the peer sort of feedback and help from a sort of training yourself to help learn the craft of repairing appliances and gain experience, what kind of advice or things would you recommend somebody that's newer focus on?
The big thing is going to be is, don't overload your plate and give yourself time to be able to actually learn. That's one of the big curves in this business is if you only got a half hour, there's only so much you can do and so much additional things that you can do, to do inside that time window. Where if you have a dryer and you're taking it apart, learning to take it apart, actually, measuring the components, doing any type of research you can prior to. When I train technicians and we're driving to the next location, we always call the customer, give them the heads up, tell them we'll be there in 20 to 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever the drive time is. And then in which case I have the technician pull a schematic up and be looking at the schematic on the way there. And we kind of do like a little Q&A on the way out to it. That way, when he gets there, there's not so much anticipation. He kind of has an idea and a mental checklist of what he's going to be going through and to get into that home. So if you can develop that and not teach bad habits, so they have that mindset each time when they go into that home, they're already have an idea of what they're going to be going to, what they're going to be looking for. Then of course, speaking with the customer and confirming it before you actually start working on the unit. These are the things that are going to develop over time. There is no technician that can just walk into our industry and work on every single type of brand and application that we do. I mean, things are constantly changing. Every year we have different models, common rate failures versus, the rarity diamond in the raw. There's always going to be different variations, but it's trusting in your equipment and having the knowledge to be able to confirm the repair and know the difference between a cause and an effect is the biggest issue. So with that, it's just going to be really just experience, having a good mentor. If you can look outside your area and find other companies that are doing the appliance repair, call them and talk with them. Go meet them, have a beer, get to know them, become friends with them. They're not your enemy. And in most cases, what you're going to find is if you go outside of these areas, if you have something that gets called into you that's over there and it's not something you can service, throw them a bone. You'll find that that scratching back favor is big in this business.
No, that's nice. One of the big takeaways I heard from you there is less is more, and that'll also give you the space to be able to think and plan ahead. And you touched on a couple things that I'd like to segue into, which has to do with like scheduling. So again, kind of talking to somebody who's newer, what are some things that you think is important for them to keep in mind when it comes to scheduling their days so that they're not becoming overwhelmed themselves, and also doing it in a way where they're not going to be overcommitting and under delivering and therefore letting their customers down?
It kind of branches into a little bit of the advertisement and what areas that you're servicing, because that's going to be your backyard. The quality of your advertisement is going to have a big response and how much that phone's ringing. So as far as what your service grid is, a lot of companies, they try to expand their grid farther thinking that they're going to get more calls, but it's actually the quality of the advertisement I've found, in my opinion. But knowing what your routes are the day before, if you or process it, what your shop can handle or you as a solo can handle, whether or not it's 3 calls a day or 12 calls a day, depending your experience level. There's no reason that you would set up a 9 to 10 on one side of the city and then a 10 to 11 on the other side of the city. So kind of control your flow and talk with the customers before. Having that business insight, to know, I want to be able to move, accordingly across the map and service everybody as well as I can. You should not be over-promising a customer a time frame just because that's what they want. Be honest with them. Tell them that you have 3 other ones scheduled. You'll be happy to do it at this time. If you can do it earlier, you'll call them. But this is what it is, and this is what I can do. The biggest thing is people don't want to let go of those customers, and that's when they get over their head because they promise something and then they're running late, and their whole day gets screwed up because of it.
Yeah, and you mentioned advertising. Can you expand a little bit on that? Are you referring to focusing or targeting your advertising in certain sections of your service area, or were you referring to something else there?
Depending on what type of ads and how you guys do them, whether or not it's social media, whether or not it's internet, whether or not it's direct mail, however your stream of avenue. Yeah, I like the term that you used, Alex, on the last one, geolocated, advertisement, and that's kind of key. You don't want to advertise to an area that you don't service. That's just it's not something that's going to do you any good in the long run, not unless you're looking to drive out to that area that to work on it. So controlling advertisement and the type of advertisement, whether or not it's going to be, are you focused in on one particular thing? Are you only doing dryers, or are you generalizing it, to every appliance type common rate failure? In some cases, you throw a coupon on there and you'll just try to get your name out there, where other times you're going to try to use like a catch and a hook, where it's going to be, you're trying to focus in on the type of problems that people are having so they relate to the advertisement.
Yeah. We can do a whole call or few on that. But I did, when we spoke a little earlier, you had mentioned about how you like to take this approach with zones. I think you had referred to servicing or scheduling certain zones on certain days. Could you speak a little to that?
So personally, like right now, I currently am a single tech in St. Louis and St. Charles. So I have two zones that I have, separated my service area into. And what I'm doing with mine personally is I'll do one zone in the morning and then move my way to the next zone in the afternoon, towards the evening, or vice versa the very next day. My flip-flop is really based on customer availability. If I have any calls on a day that ends in Y and they call in and they want service in that area, well, that sets up priority to that zone in the morning and the next zone towards the evening. The next day, flip it over. If the customer can't make today, they can make tomorrow. Try to put them where they're first. Now, if you're multiple technicians and you have more than 3 or 4 techs, then you can zone it out and you can do multiple zones. Prime example, Indianapolis is kind of a big round circle. So break it off into quarter chunks of the pie. I have one technician that works northwest. I have one technician that works northeast, and I focus them in on those areas. Unfortunately, there are some cases where that technician can't work on this type of product, or it's a sealed system one. So my sealed system guys are generally going to have a little bit more drive time, a little less call volume, but that's what sealed system work is. So really, how to adapt that to each type of circumstance and business, it's kind of based on your coverage area. If you're working on a straight line, or if you're working in a big perfect circle, I try to break my route down into zones in different areas to try to service as much as I can, as best I can.
That's very helpful. We've talked a little bit about setting expectations for the customer through messaging and advertisements, and some other ways. Is there anything particular that you would want to call out, or you think is important when a technician or a dispatcher, once they actually pick up that phone and speak to the customer? So after the phone call is made, or after the contact form is submitted, once there's that first interaction between the appliance repair company and that prospective customer, what are some best practices that you might recommend, or things that people might want to avoid to help ensure that they're setting expectations appropriately and setting themselves up for success?
The more information that dispatcher or that CSR can get in the very beginning, that's golden. Having the model number, getting the correct type of symptom. Right now with the COVID-19, running through your COVID, response, statement. Does anybody in the home have any fever, flu-like symptoms, coughing? Will they have the ability to wipe down the product before the technician gets there? As far as the expectations for the customer, try to be honest at all times. Uh, for me, my estimates are pretty systematic. I actually don't have a problem showing the customers, the price of the parts. And now I show them on a manufacturer's suggested retail price, and I show them. I said, here's the list for. Here's what you pay. I don't mark anything up. I charge you as it lists. And then I have my service call and I have my labor. So, I mean, the profit of the call is systematic. There is no gouging. So I try to be fair with all the customers, and I find that a lot of times they're humbled by that. They like that, to see that comfort and that security, knowing that, hey, I'm not getting, gouged here. The guy's really doing a stand-up job and going out of their way. Telling the customer you can have a part here in 2 days and it's going to take you 10 to get there. That does the customer no good. That does you as a business, no good. You're just setting yourself up for problems to try to get the job approval. The best case scenario I always tell with my techs is be honest. Don't feed them a line of crap if you can't follow through with it. The expectations in the very beginning and getting all that information, up front and having that's just knowledge. That's what we want. That's what we're here for. If I know what the model number is and I can have the part with me and I can get a day one complete, number one, I'm making more money. Number two, my customers are going to be happier with my service because I'm able to do it right then and right there.
Yeah, and something that I'm hearing in that is to be proactive as opposed to be reactive. I've heard lots of these like horror stories of an appliance repair being completed, and then the customer afterwards, maybe they find a part number and they look it up online, and it just creates this sort of like domino effect of questioning and trying to get these answers to themselves. And you don't have control over helping to kind of mold that experience unless you're being proactive, like how you've described. So a lot of your feedback has been really applicable to those that are experienced, but I want to just shift over to a couple of these questions that have the more experienced technician or business owner in mind, somebody that is looking to expand from a solo to a multi-person operation or multi-person team. And I know that you touched on some best practices earlier, but is there anything that you wanted to add in when it comes to the topic of like hiring your first technician and or dispatcher?
First start, that first jump. I mean, the biggest thing you have to look at is understanding and having the insight as a business owner. So, I mean, if you're already swamped and you're already over your head, trying to expand from that point, you're putting more on your plate than you already have. So having that business insight to look ahead and realize, I'm not slowing down. I'm getting more and more calls per day. This needs to happen sooner than later, or I'm going to be over my head. Waiting till the last minute is just going to bury you even further and make things more complicated, because you're going to have time. Whether or not you train a new technician or you hire somebody on and they have to train on software, or you hire a CSR and you have to train them on phones and dispatching and software. Whatever the circumstance is, it will require time.
Yeah, so TK is asking right now, if you didn't mind, what's your opinion on hiring a trained technician versus training somebody that's green, somebody that would be an apprentice?
It really depends, and that really falls into bad habits. What type of quality technician? What has he learned, and what has he learned wrong? That's really going to be the big thing. I always love to get a technician that has just the basic fundamentals, and he has a thirst to want to fix stuff. He has he feels that satisfaction when he actually repairs something, because that is the best trait to find, because that shows that they have passion in their work, and you can really build on that and make a great technician. If you get the people that, their only concern is how much money are they going to get, number one, I mean, their focus isn't, really, to the direction that you would want it to be, but it is an inevitable, factor in this business. So the biggest thing I look for when I look at a technician is I would rather have a, like one that has just the fundamentals. Now, you can always build and turn somebody into a tech. That's always the case. But a lot of times, more so than not, trying to get technicians out of bad habits is one of the hardest things to deal with. And us as technicians, we all have bad habits. I have mine, and everybody here has theirs. It's just, that's a fact of life. It's trying not to implement those bad habits onto your technician and have them turn out the way you want them to, or, strictly show them, avoid this, this is a problem that we don't want to get into. So in my opinion, I don't mind taking on experienced technicians, though they have a smoother and faster curve as far as getting out of training and probation time. Especially when you deal with, if you're already overwhelmed, I mean, they can jump on the ball and get it rolling within 2 weeks of learning the software, versus a fresh technician that's going to take, 60 to 90 days on your truck, and then an evaluation at the end to determine if he's going to be able to run them or not. So it's kind of a 50-50 there. It really just depends on what's the word I'm looking for? Single call basis, each one individually. And that really just depends on the technician.
And I'm also curious your take on, how would I put this? There's two approaches to training, or two areas in training. One is that is going to require your time. It's like a one-to-one exchange of your time to the training or the learnings that individual is going to have. And then the other would be along the lines of standard operating procedures that are sort of, you spend the time to develop them once, and then they can be used multiple times over trainings, or training programs like education programs. Where do you, like, in your opinion, where does somebody, or how does somebody strike the balance between those in the best way?
Taking a technician and sending them to a school, whether it be Samurai or Appliantology, or any of these appliance training courses, and that, number one, don't invest in a bad tech. I mean, if you see the technician's got a very high promise, and there is a loyalty there, then yeah, I mean, investing in that technician, you're investing in your business. As far as my personal experiences, I've always had technicians in my truck, and they stay with me until I feel that they're ready, to fly on their own. I want to see them looking at parts. I want to see them actually diagnosing the unit, not just walking in, putting their hands on it and saying, "Oh, I know what this is. I got to order a part," and then they're out the door within 10 minutes. That type of customer experience is the bad habits that I was referring to earlier. So when the technicians talk about, like training and different availabilities, it really just depends on the technician. Some technicians, I would love to send them to every single class possible, because that technician, to me, is hands down a worthwhile investment. And that's when the technicians are on your truck. That's what they are. They're an investment. Every day that they're running with you, you're paying them to sit in your truck, and you're paying them to run you slower so you can train them. But they're an investment in your company. So, I mean, to see that good promise in the technician and not waste your own time, I refer back to that from one. It's a one-on-one basis. It really just depends on the technician and the quality of the person. So it's I get some technicians, and I've had it. They work with me one day. One solid day, and they said, "This isn't for me." Because when I'm in the home, I mean, you're putting your booties on when we walk through the door. You're taking your booties off when you walk out of that door. We put floor skids down. I want you to go through and actually take the unit apart and confirm that it has a problem. I see a lot of custom technicians, and I brought it up the other day in one of our groups. The guys say if they get a oven that doesn't work, they don't even check it. They just replace the igniter. I'm not that guy. I want to have a meter on it. I want to prove that part is bad. That way I can guarantee that the repair is done and done properly. I don't like guessing. We're taking customers' money and guaranteeing, a repair and our warranty, our names on it. I don't want to put my name on something that I just guessed.
Yeah. And I want to say that looking at a certificate from a training course it's a drop in the bucket compared to what your eyes see and what your own experience day in and day out says, and it'll leave you with a lot more confidence in sort of signing off on somebody being ready to go out on their own or whatever the criteria is.
So when my technician passed my approval, it's basically I'm really looking to see how the technician uses his tools, how the technician interacts with the customer. The first thing that I always will teach a technician is safety. That is going to be beaten into that technician on day 1, day 2, day 3. Wear your gloves. These dryers are sponsored by Gillette. They will cut you up. I want them to see them wearing a glove every time. I don't want to be dealing with a hospital visit on day 2 of the technician getting stitches. I want the technician to understand, liability and it's not scratching a customer's floor. So safety is always going to be the very first thing that I teach a tech. The interaction and talking with them and seeing how they respond. The big thing I look at is how they use their tools. I mean, if I give 5 different chefs, the ingredients to make the same cake, I'm going to get 5 different types of cakes. There'll be, small differences in them, but that's just, how the tech uses it, his tools, or how the chef, uses his knife. So when I see a technician become comfortable in his work, that's when I know that I'm able to send them out on their own.
And so Will Toro shared in the chat his point of view of his, saying that factory warranties are a great way to start training new technicians as sort of a supplemental or another way in addition to what you've been describing with doing kind of ride-alongs on COD calls.
It really is. He is correct with that because of the fact that you have tech assist there that can run you through everything. You don't have to worry about the liability of part expenditure, ordering the wrong part. I mean, you can always send it back or install it if you get the approval. There's also, training classes that are available, but I can probably guarantee most people here that went through those training courses, you're never going to those classes to learn on what they're failing the most and what you're commonly working on. You're just going there to learn here's their new version, here's how to take it apart, and here's the new features it has, and does anybody have any questions? So, I mean, some of those ones, some of the factory training is good. Some of it is just a waste of time. I mean, to be honest, the flex washer for Samsung, you work on 2 or 3 of them, but by the time you actually, work on them as being a COD basis, you done forgot everything in that training course that you took a year and a half ago. So, I mean, in some cases, the consistency of working with factories, warranties, you do learn single brand, repair tactics, and you learn multiple component testing. So you're able to, apply that to other brands as far as on a component level. So I do agree with that. I mean, it's really good to take a factory trained technician. Their protocol and their standard would be what you'd want to see, coming from a +1 certification.
Great. Yeah, thank you for that, Will. So I'm going to need to hop off in just a moment. And when I do, so I might disappear abruptly, and I'll move the host privileges over to TK so that you guys have the opportunity to continue the conversation if you'd like. But I did want to ask one more question around expanding a service area, knowing when it's time to bring on another tech so that you can expand your service area. Like, are you looking for a certain level of workload consistently on your daily schedule that kind of gives you that indicator that it's time to look towards expansion? And then also any best practices that you would recommend on that topic.
Yeah, so your CPD, your calls per day. If you are a technician that you want 7 calls a day, and that is how you run your day because of your logistics and your drive time being, larger, or if you don't move as far as the speed that some of the other technicians may, or if your number was 10, however it be, when you look at what your CPD is per day, or combined total for your technicians. To give you an idea, my last company, I was running about 70 calls a day for that area. And when I look at what my CPD is, and then I divide that by my technicians, I'm able to determine, okay, I'm above 7, calls per day. I'm really getting a high CPD in this area. I need to either rezone that a little differently so my technicians aren't working late or overwhelmed, so they have better quality of time per call, or I need to expand the zoning out and get another technician over into that area. When you first look at that, again, we go back to the very beginning, where it's your business insight and your ability to see, and monitor all the values and numbers of your business. So if you look at your CPD, or you look at your calls total per week, and you say, I'm running 45 calls, and my phone's, I'm scheduling 2 and 3 and 4 days out now, that is a big indicator. If you're already booking out 3 or 4 days in advance, everything that's ringing from now until then is a potential loss. You're losing money if customers don't want to wait 5 days to have you come out to their home. So understanding that and looking at it, the same vice versa. If you are starving for calls and you don't have any, your availability is going to be, I need to expand into a different area, to gain more value. And the best way to intro into that area is offer that area per day. I'll do this area on this day. I'll do this area on this day, and see how it books out. Put your toe in it. See how the water feels. If it's something that's not panning out, or you're not getting a high call volume, or that's what it is. I offer some service to extended areas that are outside my area, and I offer those on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So on these 2 days, I will go to an extended drive time, to cover those areas to see what the potential is in that area. As far as expansions and pending, the size of your company, if you're a single man and you're trying to expand in, you're going to have to time manage it and break it down. Don't offer it every single day, because it's just going to kill you in logistics, and it's going to reduce the amount of actual calls and profit that you can make per day because of the coverage that you're putting yourself under. If you're a multiple technician company and you're moving into a new zone, being able to field that zone multiple times a day or multiple times a week at least, is really going to be the big determiner. A soft open would be advertised first, and get that ability there. Don't just on Tuesday decide that I'm working in this area now, and hopefully someone will call my phone. So it just goes back again to having the insight and move appropriately. Know what you want to do and work towards getting a goal.
Yeah, I really like that. Point that you made about if you're starving for calls, using the expansion of service areas to test. In marketing, testing is everything. So, and it applies in business operations also. And you would also mention knowing your margins, because you can be bringing in a lot of calls. You can be getting a lot of leads, booking a lot of service calls, but if you're not working on things the right way to have the margins that make sense, you could, on the outside, it might look like you're booming, but on the inside, you're actually losing money. Um, no, this has been really great. I really appreciate you setting the time aside, Bobbie. This has been really helpful, and a lot of valuable information that you've shared. So thank you for that. We're going to need to wrap up, but if anybody has any follow-up questions or perspectives, thoughts, anything like that, feel free to drop them in the Facebook group, and I'll go ahead and have this recording posted up in the Facebook group tomorrow. Thanks again, Bobbie.
No, not a problem.
Cool. All right, everyone, signing out.